How's it going, Rogues Gallery? My name is Kel, also known as Red Zone Rogue, and I am one of the official Shadowverse Evolve English Edition ambassadors. Today, we're going to talk about something that I thought would be really useful to any potential and current Shadowverse Evolve players out there. What are the must-have neutral cards for Shadowverse Evolve? These are the cards that you can put into any Shadowverse Evolve deck because they're neutral. They can go into any single deck. And as such, they are valuable to have just for any Shadowverse Evolve player. So in today's video, we're going to go over my top 10 sort of. I say sort of because some of the numbers have like multiple cards and we have some honorable mentions. There's a lot of cards to talk about, a lot of really great cards to pick up for the game that you can just put in a myriad of your decks. Some of these cards I personally own like 12 copies of because I have them in like 4 different decks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I always appreciate the support here on the Shadowverse Evolve content. Let's make these videos go higher, get bigger, and do as well as they possibly can to share the Shadowverse Evolve with everyone out there. All right, so let's get on with the list. The first card we're going to talk about is kind of a no-brainer, so I wanted to cover that first, and that is Bellringer Angel. Bellringer Angel is a fantastic card that is run in a myriad of decks and continues to be relevant into the upcoming sets. It's a very simple card. It's just a 1-drop, draws a card when it dies, it has ward, and then it also has the ability to evolve and deal a couple points of damage. Why is this good? Well, it gives you something to play early on that also replaces itself, and it can just be really annoying to deal with if your opponent is attacking with like big units. You know, being a 0/2 just still gums up the board, and as such, it's just a great little angel. It's also really good to use in conjunction with effects that you know, can get rid of it or make use of it, kind of like your soul conversion if you're playing one of my favorite crafts, Abyss. Next up, we have Feena, Dynamite, Daredevil. This is one of the cards, along with Bellringer Angel, that I just needed like 12 copies of because I have them in so many different Shadowverse Evolve decks. Feena is a newer card. She's pretty well statted. She's a 3/2, 4/2, but she has a really good fanfare ability. Her first fanfare ability basically just lets you destroy any 1-drop follower, which is good. You know, you can clean up your opponent's board. There's some pretty nasty 1-drop followers out there, so that's pretty good. But also, she has this great ability to, if you don't choose to do the destroying a 1-drop follower, you can instead choose to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, pick a 1-drop follower, and then put it in your hand. It's just really good. She's very good on multiple fronts. She's really versatile. You're going to see that with a lot of the cards on this list. They have like multiple options and they're really flexible. So being both neutral and flexible is a great recipe for just a banger neutral card. Next up, we have a trifecta of cards. So number 3, we have 3 cards. And I wanted to do this because I didn't want to give these each their own slots because I feel like they kind of do the same thing, and that just doesn't feel great if I just have these 3 cards. Anyway, it's Angelic Snipe, Angelic Barrage, and Surefire Bullet. These are your quick speed neutral cards that just deal damage. These are your quick speed damage dealing removal type cards. Angelic Snipe is just kind of your bread and butter, just a 1-drop that deals 2 damage to a follower. You also have Surefire Bullet, which is very strong, a 2-drop that deals 3 damage or 4 damage conditionally. And then we have Angelic Barrage, which is one that doesn't make it into as many decks. It's more meta dependent, but I still wanted to include it on this list because it just deals 1 damage to all of your opponent's followers. And I think that can just be really solid in general, depending on the meta, right? That 2 damage from the snipe could be better in a lot of circumstances, but maybe that 1 damage is better in the current meta. So these are all cards that you must get. You must get a playset of these cards. They are just absolute staples for the game, and it turns out they're also just really easy to pick up. So yeah, get your removal. Next up, we have a card that's kind of similar to the other ones, but it is different in some ways, and that is Execution. Execution is another removal. This one is a little more expensive, you know, play point wise at costing 4, but it's kind of a catch-all. Being able to kill basically anything in the game with some, you know, variations here or there. Like, I guess it can't kill the Heavenly Aegis, but it's just a nice catch-all. It's a 4-drop. It has a quick speed. A lot of decks these days instead like to use their class-specific removal instead because they tend to be a little bit more efficient or synergize with the decks a little bit more, but I still think it's worth getting a couple copies of Execution just to have in case you're brewing and you're like, I just need a removal spell and I just don't have one for this craft for whatever reason. So Execution is just really good to have. Get a couple copies. Next up is one of my personal favorites. It's kind of a pet card. It is from the Uma Musume set. This is Rico Kashimoto Planned Perfection, and I love this card. This card does everything that I want to do. She's powerful. She just gives you a nice little 2-for-1 sometimes. Just so good. Basically, she's a card that helps you catch up in ways that other cards don't, but she's not really that good if you're already winning and you have like a full board. She really only does stuff if you have no other followers, but when you do, she has that amazing strike effect of destroying another follower. Then she still has the damage that she deals, and then she also deals more damage to your opponent's leader. She's just fantastic. You can get a nice 2-for-1, so you can attack one follower, use her strike trigger to destroy something else, and then you still get the damage as well from her attack. Also, really interesting to note that the strike trigger happens before she actually deals damage. So if you are attacking an enemy follower and you choose to destroy that follower with the strike trigger, well, that follower cannot deal damage back to Rico, so she just gets like a free kill. She's really good. I run her in a lot of decks that go that plan to go over 6 and more play points. So any like mid-range to control deck, I always consider running some Ricos. She's really good. Next up, we have Lyrial Archer Throne. This card is so annoying. This card is so annoying and very, very good. She just has a ton of defense. She makes it so you cannot take any ability damage, and she attack, she protect, she can deal damage to your opponent at quick speed. Like, this is a very, very good card. The fact that she can do that damage at quick speed means you can wait till the end of your opponent's turn to activate her, so they can't just freely attack into her. She has so much health, she's just kind of annoying to deal with. She makes burn spells completely useless, like Razor Claw. She's just really annoying and really, really good. She's a very, very strong card against certain decks, and against others, she's just okay. But being a neutral card means, like, you always got to at least consider this. Like, is this card good for your meta? Do you want to run this card? And right now, she's very good, and I would at least get a full 3 copies of her. Next up, we have Mjerrabaine. Everyone calls him Jerry. Omen of One. I'm also just going to call him Jerry. This is a card that I maybe have underrated when I first saw him, but he's actually just really, really good. This is a card that sees play in a decent number of decks these days, including something like Sanguine Abyss, where Jerry can just push a lot of damage, both to your opponent's followers and to their face. When he evolves, he can just do 5 damage across the board, which is pretty wild. Also, the fact that he kind of just, you know, gets back up at the end of turn means it's really, really hard to attack into as well. Jerry is much more annoying than I gave him credit for. He's very, very strong, and I think he is one of those cards, like I said, that if you just want to deal direct damage to your opponent, hey, this is an option for you, and it's something that you might want to consider getting a full playset of Jerry and his Evo cards. Next up, we have what I'm going to be calling the Gilnelise package. That is Gilnelise, Omen of Craving, Omen Splendor, and the Apostle of Craving. This package is really, really good for your mid-range and your controlling decks that really kind of want to get to the mid-game and to the late game. She provides a ton of value, being able to go and search up both Craving Splendor and the Apostle of Craving. Craving Splendor, by the way, is just really good in general and sees a lot of play in decks. In fact, I could have put it next to the Angelic Snipe and the Surefire Bullet, but you know, I figured it was better served down here in the Gilnelise package, but do know that some decks run it just by itself. In fact, I run it in a Haven control deck without Gilnelise, though I think the deck could do well with Gilnelise. Gilnelise is just so good, right? If you do her full thing, she's just incredibly good. She deals a ton of damage. She can gain a ton of life from her drain. You have a second body with the Apostle of Craving, who also gets an Evo version that can either like deals damage and gets a nice little pump on a unit. You can deal that damage to an opposing enemy's unit to just kind of finish it off, or you can pump up Gilnelise so you can get a higher damage drain, and then you can also play your Craving Splendor for free from the EX area when you have Gilnelise out. It's a really, really powerful package, really, really good for like I said, kind of like these slower control decks like Rune or Haven. Next up, we have one of my favorite cards in the entire game, one of my favorite characters in Cygames stuff just in general. We have Dark Angel Olivia. I love everything about this card. The art is awesome, and she has such a really, really cool effect that gives you the ability to choose between a lot of different powerful effects. You can either choose to draw a card, force your opponent to discard a card, gain some life, or even get an Evo point, which is a very, very unique ability. And you're gonna pick 2 of those. I'll be honest, most of the time I just pick me draw, you discard, but sometimes you gain the life. I don't know, there's a lot of options, and that's what makes this card so good, the flexibility. And she's also just kind of like a 5-drop 5/5, so she has like a decently sized stat line on top of it. Really, really good in kind of like these mid-rangey style decks. I keep saying this, but it's true. You know, I play this in my Thief Sword deck, and I've seen a lot of people cut it, but I still really like Dark Angel Olivia in that deck. And you know, anytime I'm building these kind of like mid-rangey into the longer game decks, especially if you want to focus on discarding, Angel Olivia, dude. Dark Angel Olivia, she's great. And finally, for our top 10, we have a brand new card from Booster Pack 6, Paragons of the Colosseum. And I'll be honest, I have my phone out just because I don't have this card exactly memorized, but I do know she sees play in the Japanese meta, you know, in several decks going forward, and she just looks really, really cool and looks like the card that I would really love for the same reasons that I like stuff like Dark Angel Olivia and Feena. She has options, and she's got a lot of options. This is Badb Catha. Badb Catha? Badb Catha. Badb Catha. We have Badb Catha here, and her art is absolutely gorgeous, and she's got a great effect. So let's kind of check it out together as, you know, like I said, this is a brand new card in the upcoming set. So she is a 3-drop 2/3, pretty good stat line there. She can Evo for 2, and she has a fanfare ability where you're going to pick one of 3 effects. Once again, I love the options. The first effect is you're going to give another follower on your field +1/+1. That's pretty good. Second effect is you heal for 2, which is also pretty good. And the third effect is you basically get to kind of like look at the top 3 cards of your deck and kind of filter them a little bit. You can either put them back on the top in any order, or put some on the bottom, any combination of that. So some back on the top, or some on the bottom, or either or all of them. So that's pretty good, right? However, when she evolves, she really synergizes with all of those. When she evolves, she becomes a 4/5. She actually gets +2/+2 when she evolves. So that's excellent, having a much better stat line. And then you get to choose another one of the following. So you get another one of these effects, but they're different this time. The first effect is you get to engage every enemy follower, which is really good if you want to attack into your enemy followers and kill them. You also can just deal 2 damage to each enemy leader, which is great. And then you can also put the top card of your deck into your EX area, which is also great. So they kind of synergize, you know, with each other, right? You can give one of your followers +1/+1, and then engage your opponent's entire board, so you can then have good attacks, or you can deal 2 damage and then gain some life, or you can do a thing where you stack the top of your deck with something nice, and then you can put it in your EX area. And then you have a 4/5 attacker with Rush because you evolved good old Badb Catha there. So yeah, I know this card is played in a few decks in the upcoming meta, and I think she's really good and really interesting to consider for, you know, any deck going forward. Options are great. And finally, let's speed run through our honorable mentions, because we have some really powerful cards that just kind of see like fringe play here or there, but I felt they're like important to talk about. So the first is Alice, Wonderland Explorer. If you're playing the Fabled strategy, you're playing Alice, right? But she's only played in that deck. Now, she is neutral, and the Fabled strategy is found across multiple decks, though mostly in Haven these days, but she's still really, really strong, and I think she sees a bit of a resurgence later in Shadowverse Evolve's Lifespan 2, as we saw in the Japanese meta. So I just had to, you know, honorable mention to Alice, even though she's not technically, I mean, she is technically neutral, but she is her own deck, right? You don't splash her in any deck. Next up is Trail of Light, and kind of similarly to Alice, but not really. This kind of just goes in one specific deck, and that is, hey, does your deck care about discarding cards from your hand? If it does, you put Trail of Light in your deck. If it doesn't, then you don't. It's not something like Angelic Snipe that you just put in everything. It's very specific if your deck really wants this card, and if it does, then it's really good. And that was our top 10-ish, a lot more than 10, neutral cards that you must have for Shadowverse Evolve. These are cards that, like I said, they're just great for any Shadowverse Evolve player. You pick up a full playset and have them in your arsenal for when you build decks, so you have all of the options available. There are some that are definitely more ubiquitous than others, like Angelic Snipe, Surefire Bullet, Bellringer Angel, even like Execution, and they're just really, really good to have. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching this video. Definitely stay tuned for some more Shadowverse Evolve content here on Red Zone Rogue, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.